Alex Jones comes out with a crazy exposure when he talked about the dangers of against our president, what Trump is truly facing with this color revolution. He exposes something that I think we all need to talk about, and we need to be in the realization of understanding that there are evil players in this world who does not want this guy to lead. We're going to discuss all that with Alex Jones today. Also, we're going to talk about what Eric Kirk said, and all of a sudden then Matt Walsh comes alongside. And then, of course, the argument with Tim Pool. Everyone's coming after Candace now, and Erica speaks out. She says that, Candace, you're lying, and you need to stop. Matt, which was one of her best friends, who says, actually on a show just a few days ago, that he would not call out friends. And I love the fact that he did call out Candace and said, please stop. You're tearing our party up. Tim Pool says the same thing. We're going to discuss the whole fiasco dealing with Candace and how she really gets debunked by Charlie's wife. Also, we're going to talk about what truly is debt. Trillions of dollars worth of debt. Does it actually mean anything? We're going to discuss the way we get money lended to us. It gets printed out of thin air, and then we have to work hard to pay it back to someone who never actually had the money, the bank. How is this system true? How is trillions of dollars worth of debt real, and what is the next venture? Well, the IRS decided to start taking Bitcoin. It says that there's tons of people already giving into paying their taxes with Bitcoin. It's going to make the U.S. government one of the biggest holders of Bitcoin. Isn't it funny how the system that was supposed to be parallel is now becoming mainstream? And so your old money, new money, digital money, everything will be government involved. Let's dive into these stories today. Crazy stories. Let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome to our channel. Thank you so very much for being here today. Again, we're so humbled by you coming back and watching us each and every day. I don't know what I say that could be smart and intelligent and wise, but I do appreciate you coming back and us talking through things in a common sense approach to figure out what's best for us as we try to raise our family and navigate this crazy world that we live in. Now let's jump into the stories of the day, because this is why you're here. Alex Jones, I want to talk about him. Now I know lately we've been talking a lot about him, but there's been things he said that sometimes, he says things crazy off the wall, but then like the last few days, he's really been on this tear of saying this is what's happening. And a lot of this stuff is starting to be proven. I want you to listen to what just came out. It says this was actually from his website, InfoWars. It says, Podesta plan crash course. What we're seeing is a national security alert. Democrats plot to launch a treasonous military coup against the Trump administration has just entered a new phase. Listen to what he says. Global sleeper cells inside the U.S. military are now telling the public and fellow service members to disregard all orders from the commander-in-chief ahead of the planned national takedown. Now, we talk about the seditious six. We talk about how some people have been on Twitter saying that, this is a color revolution. But Mike Flynn said this last week. He said, when you start breaking ranks and you start seeing that rank breaking and no one's getting actually, in trouble for it, he said this is going to cause a color revolution. This is going to cause a major problem. This is playing right into the Democrats of saying, well, if our commander-in-chief can't actually lead his military, his army, what kind of damage is that going to do to him, and is he safe? We hear about the coup d'etats all the time. We hear about the dangers of deep state and establishment. But what we're seeing and what Alex Jones is trying to bring attention to is you're having these military guys that are defying the president. There's been some taking to Instagram and Reels, and there's been some taking to TikTok and Facebook and YouTube, and them stating their disgruntlement with their leadership. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think that is completely not part of the military way. Either you go along with your commander-in-chief, or you go through tribunals and go through court proceedings. I mean, bottom line is you have to follow the commander-in-chief. Well, you have active military, not just these low-ranking guys, these high-ranking guys that are stating what they believe. They're stating their thought pattern of how they're going to disregard Trump orders. Now, the seditious six, let's talk about those 6 Democratic senators. Did you know that 5 are serving or have served in the military, in intelligence, some of them in intelligence? the main one, Stolken or Sloken, whatever her name is, she was part of the CIA. These are the people that are part of, worked for the government, worked for the public their whole life, and now they're trying to disregard the President of the United States. Doesn't matter if there's an R&D behind his name. When you start hearing your senators that are one of, two in each state, but basically one of 100 people that have extreme amounts of power, start calling for disregardment of their president, this is a big deal. We're trying to make it normalized. See, this is how propaganda works. If we throw enough stuff at it, and we throw enough, it's kind of like fishing. Let's take this example. You know good as I do. When you fish, you're not going to catch something every cast. But if you throw it enough, sooner or later, you're going to catch a fish. I believe that's exactly what propaganda is doing to our populace. We keep throwing enough stuff out to a point where it starts to stick. And then we start believing it. And we take it hook, line, and sinker. We cannot disregard the fact that this is actually happening and that this is not just politics as usual. This is not politics as usual. This is not, the left versus the right. This is the establishment versus America versus. This is good versus evil. Why do I say that? Did you know that Trump has not had one recess appointments? Did you know at this same time Reagan had like a few hundred? George H.W. Bush had a few hundred. Obama, Biden, Bush, Clinton all had in the 50s and 60s and 70s of recess appointments of people that were able to be put into the cabinets, even when their Senate and Congress was not the same party as the president. They had more people passed than what the Trump administration has had. I don't think that Alex Jones is just talking about the Democrats. I think he's actually talking about the establishment, which includes a lot of our Republicans. Trump's agenda is not getting passed. And so it makes him look, quote unquote, weak. And sadly, that propaganda is going to end up infiltrating and hurting the right more and more. Now, this leads me to the second story, because I do believe that people like Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson are actually hurting the Republican movement. Let's first go to Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson did an interview with Theo Vaughn and then with Matt Walsh. And he talked about how, Qatar is so amazing and that he's buying property there. I told you that. We talked about that story the other day. But he actually made a comment that is so completely false. And it's like, as if he truly is a Christian, I hope he is. But again, he curses a little too much for me. But if he truly is a Christian, why would he say what he said? He said Qatar has been nicer and more friendlier than Christians. Now, that is completely than Israel. Now, that's completely categorically false. You can be a Christian and live in Israel. And actually, the leadership has even said that Christians have a place here. And they're like a really big part of the Jewish heritage. Now, they may not believe like Christians. They may not believe like they should with Jesus being the king. But here's the thing. Qatar has legal no Christians. If you are known as a Christian, you cannot buy a home, not buy property. Now, how is Tucker Carlson buying a home if he is a quote-unquote Christian? Because the influence and impact that he's making to make Qatar look good, they're willing to bend over and allow him to do what he wants to do because he is making it look like they're the good guys. And all the while, they're the ones that's sponsoring most of the terrorism that's coming from the Middle East. So you see, that's how we normalize. So that's Tucker Carlson. Nick Fuentes. He has got more bot farms. He's got more bot farms and more infiltration by a synchronized version of people or bots or AI generation than even Elon Musk. Elon Musk comes out and states that he believes that Nick Fuentes is a Fed. Now remember, he was at J6. He was not arrested for some reason, even though he was calling for people to go in the Capitol. If you remember that there was a report the other day that said he has a synchronized push. When he puts out a tweet or puts out a video or a short, he has a synchronized push where all of a sudden this massive amount of paid for bots of some sort is pushing his content even more than Elon Musk, who owns X. Now you tell me, who's paying for those bots? Who's the one that's wanting to quote-unquote infiltrate and hurt the Republican movement? Because both of these men, even though they say they might have supported Trump at one time, Tucker still calls him a dear friend, but the bottom line is they're still undermining the president. Now that leads me to Candace, and this is where we need to camp out for a second. Candace has made some huge accusations. And man, every time I bring up Candace, everybody goes crazy. A lot of y'all get very mad and comment. But Erica Kirk just came out and stated that this whole push that Charlie sent out a message saying that he thought he was going to, lose his life the next day. He said that was never the truth. What it was him talking to Frank Turek, and Frank Turek saying that, you need to make sure that you have increased security at these college events. Not because of one event, but because all events can be very, very touchy, and it gets very emotional. He said you need to be careful. And Charlie has made the comment that people are always wanting to take him out because of what he was speaking and how God was using him. And what Candace is she took it out of context to make it look like it fit her narrative and not the truth. Erica Kirk said that she's having to pay for extra security, not only for her and her family that supposedly Charlie loved, of course. It's his wife and children. But for some reason, Candace acts like TPUSA is fully against him. Erica Kirk stated that she's having to have extra security for her family, also for Edgar Colvett, also for Blake Neff. Now remember, here's the crazy thing. While Candace goes after Blake Neff worked for Tucker Carlson for a long time. Isn't it weird how these circles are so small, and we're starting to realize that all these people had ties to the conservative and Republican movement even before Candace did. And so far, Candace is the one that knows the truth and they don't. It's just amazing to me. Here's another thing to think about. Candace came out the other day and stated, and y'all all heard it because it trended and went viral, that if Erica Kirk told her to stop, she would stop. Well, Erica Kirk just told her to stop. Stop spreading these lies. And guess what? Candace is not stopping. Here's something else to think about. These three people, Tucker, Nick, Candace, they're not actually helping the movement of conservatism whatsoever. Take the fact of all of them. First of all, Nick Fuentes is now saying he's going to expose Candace. And if you let him talk long enough, people start realizing truly how much he hates women and how much he hates conservatism and, again, Christianity. He'll say he's a Catholic all day, but he doesn't live like it. So you're starting to see how people, I think, are waking up the more they listen to him. Tucker Carlson will play both sides of the aisle so quick to make himself relevant. And I think it actually ends up harming him because people are waking up to the fact that he is a cheerleader for a Middle Eastern country that believes in Sharia law over Christianity, all in the name of hating Israel. That's exactly his platform now. It's become more aware than ever. Now, this is where I want to bring up Matt Walsh, Tim Pool, and even Patrick Bet-David. Now, Tim Pool, I don't even watch Tim Pool, but he's been in this spat right now for a while. Crowder, same way, been in this spat for a while. So you have these two guys who are, they could be controversial, but both have spoken out against Candace. But I want to bring up two more people that I think have just crazy impacts. Two people. Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh come out and stated the other day that he was going to keep neutral in this whole situation because he thinks it's just a debacle. And he said that Charlie was the glue, and now all of a sudden we're realizing we were all wrong. We didn't make a lot of Charlies. What we did is we lost the one that actually kept us all together. He said, so I'm going to stay neutral in the whole situation because it's a debacle. But he did come out yesterday and finally state for the record that Candace needs to stop, that it's went too far, that she's destroying the party. Now, the reason this is significant is because of all the people at Daily Wire that still has a relationship. Michael Knowles and Matt Walsh have a great relationship with Candace Owens. Also, Candace and Matt go back a long ways. Dear friends. And I love the fact that now it's not just conservatives calling out another conservative. It's friends just saying, look, this is not working anymore. Stop it. Now, this goes with what PBD said. Patrick Bet-David was almost looked at as a mentor of Candace's. Now, they've not known each other for a long time, but they've been in the same circles for a long time with conservative media. And PBD came out and stated the same thing. He said, look, there's some things that we need to be cautious about, and there's some things that we need to try to get more truth about. But ultimately, I can't stand with Candace on some of these details that she's putting out. And most of the stuff has been not truly proven. It's been theorized, and it's been talked about with almost anonymous sources, and everybody's like, oh no, she's telling the truth. Well, if she is, then why is she now going against Charlie's wife? Is she really stating that Charlie's wife had something to do with this now? She's going against people like Jack Hibbs, a great Christian pastor. Sorry, you may not like him, but to be honest with you, he's a great Christian pastor actually fighting the good fight in California. For goodness sakes. What we're seeing is the dismantling of our own party. And it's from the establishment side that Trump can't get anything done with Mike Johnson, John Thune, and Mitch McConnell, and all the rest of them. But then, on the other side, with conservative pundits and influencers. Now let's go back to what we first talked about, Alex Jones. The color revolution, it could be in the military. It could be the Podesta plan. The color revolution could be with the establishment. The fact that the people like Lindsey Graham's, the Mitch McConnell's, John Thune's, Mike Johnson's, they all act like they really like Trump, but truthfully they don't vote for him. I mean, they hadn't codified one thing in Congress that Trump wanted. Or it could be the influencers. Who's paying for those bots for Nick Fuentes? How much money has Candace made off this and destroyed the party at the same time? Tucker's partner, very heavy ties to the Middle East. Now, you can do your own research on every one of those stories. But ultimately, I don't think Trump is facing just one problem. I think he's facing several problems from several other sides. And I don't know if he really has a friend in this whole situation, because everybody wants their time on the soapbox, and everybody then wants their own way of saying, well, we're right, we're self-righteous, but we're right, we know all the answers. And sadly, I think we're actually just destroying the right. And that's scaring me. What's going to happen? I think Alex Jones had a good point. And I'm glad to see that Matt Walsh and Tim Pool and Crowder and PBD, all these people are starting to speak up, even down to Erica Kirk. If I don't want to silence any of these people. I don't believe that's the right. I don't believe that's right at all. But if we can't see truth in this, and Candace keeps saying the things she says, and Tucker keeps saying the things he says, and Nick Fuentes keeps saying the things he says, there will be no Republican movement. And a Democrat socialist will win out, and we will look just like UK and Canada in the next 5 to 10 years. Now I want to go story with our money, because this is so important. Let's just pause for a second, and let's just actually talk about fractional lending and the Fed and how we think that Elon's the richest man in the world. I heard a podcast the other day. It was so good because it's eye-opening. And it said Elon Musk doesn't have the money that everybody thinks he has. And what he was saying was he wasn't going against Elon. He was saying Elon's not the richest man in the world. It's the Fed and the biggest banks in America. They're the players that matter. He said, prime example. He said, say for instance, you go in the bank. You need to start a business. It's $1 million just for easy money. $1 million. They say, okay, well, you've got to have a little collateral, but most of you have to have a down payment, and then you're going to borrow the money from us at 5, 6, 7% interest, 3%, whatever that interest is. Now, that bank did not have $1 million in their vault to go count it and give that guy the money or to put it in his bank account, correct? It's fractional lending. So that bank makes up this money by calling this other big bank that then calls the Fed, that turns around and quote unquote backs this money, that there's no true money that actually goes to the guy's account. It's all just digitally moved around and transferred. Now that bank never had $1 million truly to give to that guy. But that guy has to pay that bank back $1 million plus interest over 5, 10, 15, 20 years, however long it is. So that bank walks away with not having $1 million, turning around and faking the $1 million, printing it or getting it, quote unquote, from the Fed, giving it to the guy. The guy pays back the $1 million plus 5 or 6, 7%. So that bank walks away with now having $1 million plus interest that it never once had. Now, the reason I want to bring that up is this. Our money is not real money. What is money? We would think it's cash, we think it's gold, we think it's silver, we think if it's barterable goods, anything of mode of exchange. However, what we're starting to realize is we go into a quote unquote $1 trillion worth of debt every 2 to 3 months in America. The banks are now borrowing money from the Fed. Well, how do they borrow money from the Fed when the Fed and the Treasury are the ones that are printing and getting the money printed? And quote unquote, they're not really quote unquote printing money. They're not printing dollars. They're just adding zeros to their bottom line and ultimately faking it, giving this fake money to a bank. This fake money to the bank is going to the consumer to then borrow this money, and the consumer actually has to work hard to pay back money that was never truly money. Do you get what I'm saying? The $1 million thing. The bank never had the $1 million. It wasn't in their vault. all of a sudden the Fed prints the $1 million, or basically puts some zeros into the bank's account to cover the loan. The loan then goes out to the consumer. The consumer then has to pay back a falsity money that was never actually real money in the bank in the first place. So now we're printing trillions of dollars, and it says we're going to keep on printing trillions of dollars. And it says this: we're under $40 trillion worth of debt, and we're fixing to hit $40 trillion. They said in the next few years we'll be at $50 trillion. At some point in time, we've got to realize that that's a false number. It doesn't mean anything, because we're never going to pay it back. But what we're doing is then we're trying to slowly incorporate the fact of falsifying it by just the same way that we fake the money. We're going to fake the debt away. We're going to all of a sudden tokenize everything. We're all of a sudden going to reset the money, and we're going to build it based on crypto and falsities of what money is not. So now we're going to basically falsify the debt. I love the fact that you're starting to hear big banks and big players talk about how, well, when we tokenize things, then we can find true value. And when we find true value in some of these assets that the government owns, what it's going to do is going to stand and leverage the debt. And so therefore the debt's not going to be real anymore. Wait, what? Well, the reason that the debt is quote unquote not real, here's how I'm going to blow your mind. When you as an American are in debt, you have to pay it back. When the government's in debt, they don't have to pay it back, because who are they going to pay it to? Who are they going to pay it to? We're giving, out of 193 countries in the world, we give 91% of those countries money. We just print money and give it to them. We don't know if it actually works or if it makes anything. It costs us more. It's inflation. It takes our tax dollars. But the truth be told, it doesn't really matter. It's false. So how can the United States default on its debt without a major problem and another currency to take its place? Well, it's not. But guess what? America needs to stay on top. They need a new power vacuum. They need a new power grab. They need to be stronger than every other country in the world, so that way their quote-unquote dollar stays the world currency, and that we can keep falsifying this dollar like we've been doing. What is that? AI and crypto. There's a new story that came out that says that, of course, the banks are backing crypto now. JP Morgan Chase just came out and stated that. The Fed has also came out and stated that. BlackRock has also come out and stated that. And now the U.S. government is going to start taking Bitcoin and cryptos for payments on tax returns and the money you owe the government. Now, I want to read this to you, because this is where it gets real serious real quick. Jerome Powell openly admits that we are borrowing from the future generations. That's a falsity, because we don't even know what money is anymore. We don't even know what we're borrowing, because $50 trillion, there's nothing we have that's worth $50 trillion. We can't even we can't really truly put a value on that. It said actually, if you take in our liabilities with Social Security and Medicaid, it's in the hundreds of trillions of dollars. That's such a falsity. Let's keep on going. It says, we are now adding $1 trillion every 70 to 100 days. It took 200 years for the United States to reach just $1 trillion, and now we're finding it every 70 days. This is not a growth problem, because America's got the money. America's got the problem. It's a spending problem. But this article stated, the only real solutions is cutting entitlements and slashing federal spending. However, that will never happen, because the leadership will never do that, because they want the votes, and they know if they start cutting benefits, they lose it all. What we're seeing is the exit plan is crypto. They're going to tokenize everything to make you believe that they have enough leverage with tokenization, with AI, with new technology, that it's going to bring value, to leverage the debt to show that the debt could just basically be canceled out. Now, when people have to explain all that to you, and they have to try to figure out, well, we're going to cancel out with leverage because of this fake money that we base on data, and this data centers and the grids are going to give us this tokenization, and this tokenization is going to give us crypto, and crypto is a stable coin. Crypto is all of a sudden it's just going to be money that you can keep on your phone. When it takes that long to just explain what money is to you now, what it means is it's not a mode of exchange anymore. It's a control element that the government is using against you. It says that when they start using Bitcoin and cryptos, and they start taking the payments into the government, it's going to make one of the biggest Bitcoin holders, if not the biggest, the government. because they're willing to take in new payments and pay your taxes with Bitcoin. Here's the thing. When you're making money, instead of having capital gains, they're saying you can use some of that money just to pay the government. You can use your Bitcoin to pay the government funds for taxes. What they're doing is they're giving you that scapegoat. They're saying, well, look, you can save some money by using Bitcoin to pay your taxes. And all the while, it's going into a Bitcoin strategic reserve that the government has built to where it could be the absolute biggest holder of Bitcoin within the next 5 years. So this crypto, this Bitcoin, that was supposed to be this parallel society, that's supposed to run against the global push, has now been completely overtaken by the global push. Now, there's a lot in this video, from the warnings to the money. I want you to do your research. I know I'm going to get some major hate on this video dealing with money, dealing with Candace, dealing with debts. But the truth is this. Things are not getting quote unquote better. We can't even define money anymore. We can't even define debt anymore. We can't even have a president that could get stuff passed, not because of the president, but because every part of his own party is working against him. Where Alex Jones says the Democrats are the ones working against him, they are. But they're having amazing help from quote unquote Trump's friends, the influencers, and the rhinos in Washington, the establishment. This is a good versus evil. This is a spiritual battle. And if we're not careful, we're going to lose every aspect of America, and what made America great is going to be gone. And while the infighting is going on with the Republicans, while the Democrats are trying to make a color revolution take place, you're going to end up with a Gavin Newsom, a Zohar Mamdani, someone like that in leadership, and we're going to be looking just like Canada and the UK if we're not careful. Please, people, wake up. You can get mad at me for talking about Candace, but she is destroying the Republican movement. You can say, oh, she's just a journalist. No, she's not. She's impacting and influencing. Same with Tucker Carlson. I actually like Tucker Carlson a lot, especially when he talks about just common sense things. But then there's times that he jumps on this hatred thing, and he is now telling you that Qatar is the place to be, and that even though they believe in Sharia law, and even though Christians truly don't have rights there, he wants to make you believe that they do. So therefore, he can sway you as the Middle Eastern Muslim countries are actually the good guy. Remember what that guy said 2 days ago when he met Tucker? He said, Tucker's done more for the Palestinian movement and the hatred towards Israel than anyone else in the world. And he was glad of it. This is unbelievable. Pay attention to this story. Focus on the fact that Trump is in trouble, not because of what Trump is doing, but everybody in Washington and everybody even in his party and the party against him is going against him. And the question is, can we actually get things done? If things do not get done and Senate and Congress don't start doing their job, we'll lose the midterm. Trump will become what they call a lamed up president, to where he can't get anything passed. They'll do impeachment proceedings. It looks like then Trump will be a failed president, and then therefore you will end up with a Democratic president with a Democratic Congress, and they work together, unlike the Republicans. And that, my friends, is going to be a scary thing. And oh yeah, by the way, that rolls right into what, 2030, right? Pay attention. Guys, let me know your thoughts on today's video. God bless.